Hi, this is Alex, and welcome to the Doomed Planet Obituaries podcast. We got new hardware, new software, a new office. Right now, we don't have a family home, and it's Sunday, so there's no chance of the dogs going crazy when the mailman arrives. Not that that really matters. So, before I talk about people who died, I'm going to talk about someone who lived, and that's me. And we can trace this back to Sunday, January 27th, 1985. That's really going to date me because I know some of my new friends and podcasting friends are all millennials or Generation Z, socialists or commies. And so, yeah, I'm old. So on this very, very cold night at a private rich kids college somewhere in upstate New York, on a frozen lake. I mean, this is a very cold place. My friend Jim Krieg had this party, and I still have the photocopied flyer from that party. It's a Star Trek theme night, and I thought the flyer was pretty clever. We have Spock saying, "Oh yes, you humans feel an emotional need to celebrate the solar anniversary of your birth." And so apparently, just in time for Jim Krieg's birthday, Star Trek, the drinking game. Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a bartender. And funny, aye, scotch is for a real man. I actually met Scotty. He came to a video store in this town around this time. He was on tour. And then, of course, at the bottom of the flyer, there's a picture of Captain Kirk with some tribbles. It's my favorite episode. If Scotty can't drink it, it can't be drank. It can't be drank. And the place, as Jim says on his flyer, I guess the posh, elegant new quad TV lounge, unless something better turns up. So he had this party, and I think it was, a bunch of rich kids. Not that that is necessarily bad. These people have minds, too, and they have futures. And there was a ton of liquor set out. And now, up until recently, I had thought that I drank so much that I blacked out, which I've never done before or since, or it turns out this time. But the next morning, my roommate, who's this dumb jock, was like, "I was going to kick your ass, but you were too drunk. You were threatening me." And then apparently someone was watering a plant in the shared bathroom of the rich kid dorm. And I had knocked over this plant, which created a dirt mess on the floor of the bathroom that someone had to pick up. And of course, I slept through picking it up. I might have done that. And then it gets worse. Then I got in trouble for this. And again, some minimum wage, non-union, serf who's hired to clean bathrooms at this rich kid's school probably had to clean this up. They probably have seen worse. But I got this penalty from the private rich kid college, and I had to meet with this dick for this one-off counseling meeting about my drinking is so bad. And this woman was just an asshole and fully unqualified to deal with someone that would have substance abuse problems. So anyway, and that kind of stopped me from drinking hard liquor in my life. Not entirely. I had a few shots of tequila after that, and occasionally I would dabble up to the present day, but I guess that learned me, right? But it turns out I really think I was drugged, because I never just chug alcohol or mix different types of alcohol. I never drank until I've been pretty blotto a few times finding my way home, but never blacked out or not forgetting what happened. And so I kind of feel like I was victimized here. I think I was slipped a rupee or roofie, whatever the fuck those are. And that's the story. Jim, I don't know, he dropped out of college. I guess his family lost their fortune in some sort of 80s scam. So yeah, this show is not all fucking celebrities who died. It could be anyone. Around this time, my friend Jeff Tilroe killed himself in his bedroom at his parents' house, and using the only gun that I've ever touched or fired in my life, just kind of a single gauge shotgun they had in a gun cabinet. And we used to fire it off of his back porch. Did that a couple times. And he's a nice guy. It's funny, he's adopted from Korea. And then he had this older brother. And his older brother was super overachiever and taller and more handsome and going off to an Ivy League school. And so I think he had an inferiority complex. And again, those two weren't related, the two adopted brothers, right? And so Jeff also went to a rich kid's school somewhere in New York or Vermont, but he dropped out. And, we were all doing the drinking and the drugging, but it got the best of him. And I think the last job he had was as a bar back. That's where you go collect ice for the bartender and shit. So, I don't know. We played a lot of Nintendo. I guess there wasn't any deep mind meld here. He's a good guy. He didn't deserve to die at age 20, 21, and that's the story. So we read from his memorial: in memory of Jeffrey Paul Tilroe, November 4th, 1965 to December 3rd, 1988. That's weird. I went over maybe the next day. You have to pay your respects, and so I go in and I said hi to his brother and his mom, and I sat there for a while. It's pretty grim. I don't think I've ever had anyone die on me up at that point. Of course, that's going to change in my life. So at 4:30 p.m., we're going to have an organ prelude, hymn number 289, Abide With Me. Old Testament lessons, the Lord is my shepherd. Oh, don't ever do this for me. I don't want any of this Christianity bullshit. God, so that's always the worst part of funerals, is having to sit through that crap. And knowing that the person being eulogized would be like, fuck this. Acts of remembrance. Music Jeff would hear. They'd probably be playing some Grateful Dead. New Testament lessons, Luke 18, meditation, prayer, hymns, benediction. His parents were religious. Maybe that's part of the reason they adopted these kids from Korea, doing a good work. Part of the religion is not evil and is based on charity and doing good works and whatnot. The Tilroe family will be in the church lounge immediately below the sanctuary to greet family and friends following the service. Our thanks to those who have helped lead us in worship of God. Special thanks to Thomas for their guitar, Gerald Hansen, the organist, Arthur Hagee, Jr., senior pastor, First United Methodist Church. Okay, that explains that. And then his parents wrote a nice obituary. Jeffrey Paul Tilroe, young Chick No. We don't want to make this difficult for you or for us, but we'd like to say something about our beloved son, Jeff. He's a special person. His hurts and disappointments are behind, and God has kissed away the last of his tears. I'm not going to read all of this shit. We were waiting on tippy toe at Kennedy Airport for this solemn-faced little boy whose picture we had come to love. He brought us joy. At 7, he was introduced to soccer, and that became his sport. He had much success, although his temper would flare from time to time. There was a story they told. I didn't go to his high school, but they showed up drunk out of their minds for a soccer playoff game. And this is the 80s, so there was more drinking among the youth than there is today. Today's kids are smarter and way more communist. Probably more weed happy. Skiing was another sport Jeff enjoyed. His artistic talent was brought out by his brother. He sketched cars, people, and designs easily. It's actually, his art is pretty crude. There's a self-portrait on the funeral thing. It's like crude anime. He loved his friends, and he was a good listener. What is it that we really want to say? We guess it is that we want you to remember Jeff for all he was and had the potential to be. He is not separated from God's love. And there's a religious poem on the back of this, God's Son and stuff. Jeff, I'm drinking a beer right now, but staying away from hard liquor. And you should have stayed away from hard liquor too. And cocaine. It's like if you're prone to depression and stuff, that's probably bad. So R.I.P. Jeff Tilroe. He died a long time ago, and now he's gone up to God. Wow, it feels good to be podcasting again. I'm using Adobe Audition. I've graduated from GarageBand in my new office / recording studio. I was going to talk about Edward Gorey. I think he died in 2000, the artist. I discovered that he was on Dick Cavett, and that was an amazing episode. I've never heard him really be interviewed before or seen him, and he's pretty awkward and very gay. I just love that.
Good evening. Every artist creates his own world, and tonight I want to welcome you to the particularly mysterious, macabre world of Edward Gorey. If you're not an addict to his work, you might not know what to expect when you first see it. Of course you wouldn't. You never forget Gorey's work once you have been exposed to it, and you certainly probably never come across anything like it elsewhere. Although I want to ask him a question about that. In case you're new to it, let me give you a little sample which is in the form of a limerick, of which both the words and the pen and ink drawings are typically Gorey. Little Zooks, of whom no one was fond, they shot towards the roof and beyond. The infant's trajectory passed him over the rectory and into a lily-choked pond. With that, I would like to introduce you to the author and the artist himself, Edward Gorey. How do you do, sir?
How do you do?
Years ago, someone with wonderful taste and precognition gave me a copy of The Listing Attic. And I thought, I must be the only person in the world who's ever heard of or seen this mysterious, wonderful sort of work.
You probably were at the time.
Well, this would have been about could this have been about 1956, 58, The Listing Attic?
It came out in 1954.
Yeah. And then I began to find that there were other Gorey cultists, and rumors that you didn't exist, that you lived in an abandoned submarine, that you wore a cape everywhere, that you were only out at night, you know, that you molested the library books that you checked out. You know, just the strangest, as you must know, kind of rumors that have circled about your name and myth. Have you ever been on TV?
No.
Are you enjoying it so far?
It's painless so far.
Yeah. Do you want to see what you look like on television?
You know, we're all going to die, and it's got to be that way. Otherwise, you'd have like 10,000-year-old dick guys running everything. And so that death is a good thing. Like, if we didn't have death, then Jeff Bezos would be around 500 years from now. Although with all the tech these sinister, villainous billionaires are working on, they're all involved in all that survivalism and life extension weirdness. In the year 2000, two people that I met died in horrible plane crashes. Alaska Airlines crashed off of Southern California, killing all on board. There was this filmmaker DJ guy. I can't remember who that was. I know I met him, and I met Tom Stockley once just through media circles. You know, Seattle's a small town. Tom Stockley was the wine critic for the Seattle Times. Imagine, this is the year 2000. That's when journalism is going to implode. I think that's around the time when the Seattle Times unions went on strike, and Frank Blethyn, the evil publisher, fought them to the death, and then suddenly realized within a short matter of time that the internet had killed his media empire that he inherited from his grandpa or great grandpa. What a fuck up. He's like worse than Donald Trump and fucking up the family business and losing all the money. And now the Seattle Times is running on fumes. And the only reason the family has any money is that they sold some of their real estate holdings. They sold one parcel downtown in South Lake Union, the Seattle Times airs, for I think $11 million. And then it flipped a year later for $50 million. Like the Blethens are fuck ups. Although I do know a Blethyn who we have children in school together who's really cool. She's, I think, if not estranged from the family, never got a piece of the action anyway, because that's how those rich, evil families are. Except for her. She's cool. So, God, Tom Stockley and his wife, Peggy, died in this horrible plane crash back when wine critic was a full-time job available at a medium-sized city's newspaper. So he had a sweet gig. I know John Hinterberger, the food critic. I don't know if that's even a job description anymore that pays. John Hinterberger, still with us. He had this famous recipe for spaghetti with clam sauce, and you can use the canned clams. And again, I'll use the canned clams. I love that. If fresh clams are sometimes unavailable, they can be expensive. The thing about his this clam sauce recipe is it's got white wine in there, and it's got parsley and garlic and everything, and olive oil, and then it's got mushrooms. Like, what the fuck, dude? That's never in a clam sauce. Mushrooms. What is knowing, Seattle's kind of a provincial town where a food critic puts mushrooms in his fucking canned clam sauce. Who knows? Maybe the mushrooms were canned mushrooms. And those, of course, the canned button mushrooms are kind of vile. Some of those Thai canned mushrooms and stuff are good for your soup and whatnot, your tom yum soup. So many restaurants have died during the pandemic. We'll get to that eventually. Here's something I dredged out of the archives, though, written by John Hinterberger. The Belltown was a neighborhood that became gentrified over the 90s when I lived there. And in an article from the Seattle Times, Thursday, May 16th, 1996, John Hinterberger reviews a new restaurant and wine bar called Vino. So I scanned in this article and I photoshopped it to just change the name of Vino to Wino. I'll read you some of that. Belltown's Wino bears liquid social delights. 1 star, Wino, it changed the stars, by John Hinterberger, Seattle Times restaurant critic. Wino, as you might have guessed, is either a new wino bar or something an Italian Tarzan swung from. It's hard to parody these bad writers at the Times. Like, Danny Westneat, who to this day still works there. Horrible. When partners Richard Kissey's local wino writer and Bob Branham, former television newsman, dreamed up Wino, they didn't neglect the kitchen, where chef Kelly McGowan, formerly of Italia, Lamprey, and the Painted Table. I think the restaurant Lampreia, get it? I'm saying Lamprey. Wino opened with an elbow-rattling party a couple months ago, but in a sense it was born in 1878 when Branham, who had just begun his career at Cairo TV, decided to take a sabbatical postgraduate year at the Sorbonne in Paris. Following that, he hitchhiked through France's wine regions. After that, I was hooked, he said. Women like it. Wino has attracted an urbane, appreciative clientele with a high proportion of women. In 4 visits, female customers have outnumbered males by almost 2 to 1. And again, the Seattle Times in 1996 could afford a full-time food critic and could reimburse him for visiting a restaurant 4 times for an article. The wines are splendid. This is lovely, a friend said of an exquisite, if smallish, serving of grilled smoked dick breast. I know some two-fisted beer gut eaters and drinkers who would laugh it off the table. The perfectly rare sliced dick was no laughing matter, however. Neither were the salads. One a hearty 2-bone flageolet. Smoked roasted chicken. Reminds me of the Frontier Room when it ceased to be a dive bar and then was a yuppie barbecue place. This is right a couple stores down from where Wino was. The Frugal Gourmet used to hang in there, and we did a whole episode about him that you can look up. The rise and fall of the Frugal Gourmet, which is a tasteless dick joke. Spring greens, gorgonzola, vinaigrette, merlot, lamb stew under pastry with Moroccan lemons and figs. A spinach risotto, $10.50, was relentlessly overlicked. White truffle oil on the asparagus. John Hinterberger, who writes the weekly restaurant review in Tempo and a Sunday food column in Pacific, visits restaurants anonymously and unannounced. He pays in bull for all food, wines, and services. He does not accept, yes. So a friend of my dad's was having an art opening, and it was a group show with this guy, Freeze Undine. He's an artist knocking about Seattle in the 90s, very talented. He can draw and paint really well. I know he was commissioned to do some artwork for the stage at Mo, which was a trendy nightclub at the time. So we're going to this MIA gallery on First Avenue in Seattle in 1994. Here's another. This photo of Freeze's artwork. It's a piece called Lassen Sie mich in Ruhe. The photo credit is Spike Mafford Photography. And it's literally just a picture of a painting. So you get a photo credit for that in Seattle. And we're going to do so many episodes about bad art in Seattle. Spike Mafford is the son of Mike Spafford, another Seattle art guy. So, and again, photography is the art form that takes the least amount of talent. I'm not talking like a union cinematographer or anything. I'm talking still photographer with your gear, especially in the modern digital age. Okay, so I show up at this art gallery, and the layout is a little weird. It's a group show with Freeze and my dad's friend. And I see Freeze. I'm like, hi, Freeze, this is great. You know, my dad's friend, so-and-so, is the other artist here. And he had no idea. He's like, who? What are you talking about? Like, you're in a group show with one other person and you don't know who the fuck it is, Freeze? So he moved to Chicago, which is a bigger city. And, got reminiscing about the 90s in Seattle. We could just go on. So please stop me unless someone from that era dies. Then we're going to always, mention them on this podcast. In the year 2000, Charles Schulz died. He was only 77. That seems like a crime. Like, the strip faded. The glory days were the 60s. My favorite period are the early 70s. Started to get schmaltzy and weird in the 80s. And so the strip had faded, but he could have gone on. And so that's age 77. You know, people should live longer than that. I think he had heart problems and stuff. Would be fun to point out that when Charles Schulz started making big money, huge amounts of money, late 60s, early 70s, he's complaining about the income tax. Well, yeah, sure enough, the income tax was 80 or more % back then. And it's, I don't know. I mean, and then again, I say I hate Christianity earlier in this podcast. He was a devout Christian, and that some of that seeps into the strip. There's a well-regarded book called The Gospel According to Peanuts that analyzes this, but that actually works for me. If there's any Christianity that I think is not ridiculous, it would be that expressed in the wholesome, thoughtful, and quite genius work of Charles Schulz.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, here's an obituary for many, many people. The Seattle Times, Tuesday, February 26th, 1991. Kuwait City freed. Iraqis retreating as allies press the attack. Saddam fighting for his own life. This war, that's the first fucking Gulf War, by the way. Just maddening. That's G.H.W. Bush. And then GW, who's like the worst war criminal other than maybe Barack Obama, he did the Gulf War Part 2, and that's resulted in the deaths of at least 500,000 people, if not more, and the displacement and destabilization of millions. And speaking of bad art, George W. Bush is the worst fucking painter. It's embarrassing. It's like he's in a fucking mental hospital, and the nurses are like, oh, this is so good, you should keep doing these. Fucking bastard. So if I live to do the obituary for him, that'll be a glorious day. And if he goes out on the same day as Henry Kissinger, oh.
Well, this is just about heaven out here.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's, you know, we got unbelievably interesting views and beautiful trees. Some of these have been out here 200 years.
Oh my goodness.
Springtime in central Texas doesn't get any better than this. The bluebonnets are in bloom across the 1,600 acres of Prairie Chapel Ranch, south of Dallas.
Yeah, I've prepared a special lunch.
A retreat for former President and First Lady George W. and Laura Bush.
Mr. Buckley actually believes I think he believes we ought to legalize marijuana. I don't. I think that'd be a big mistake.
The glorious 90s. My friend Tom Gogola wrote a story for the New York Press, and it's illustrated by Danny Hellman, I also know him, really great illustrator who did a lot of work for Screw magazine at the time. And the New York Press is an alt weekly that, like most of them, is no longer with us. So Tom's story is called Chelsea Riot Girl, and it's all about how she recorded this punk rock anti-Clinton, anti-establishment punk rock album called Are You There, God? It's Me, Chelsea. And this was satire, but it got so much traction that the White House had to officially deny it. So that was one of Tom's great scores. I know Tom lives in Northern California right now, and he does outreach for a senator or a state senator or a representative or something. And that's, you know, your constituents call in with problems and complaints, and someone like Tom is there working with them and talking to them. So good for him. He's one of the greats and still alive like me. I wonder if my friend Shane is alive. I can't track him down. I got a poster in my new office. It says, "Revolution is mind pollution," with a picture of Shane. And God, he had this birth defect where one ankle was incredibly small, and he built. I might have talked about Shane in the last year's episodes at some point, but he was under extreme pain, and then they were giving him more Vicodin than you could imagine. I went with him to the drugstore once, and he got a giant bottle of Vicodin and then 2 bottles of Robitussin. And then another couple times he'd come over to my place in Belltown, and he'd have a magnum of cheap wine, right? And he'd chug it. It's because you get a better buzz for that. He would chug 2 bottles of wine. He was also very brilliant. I mean, he had this typical DJ, electronic, whatever bullshit set up in his apartment, and his music never went anywhere, but he was brilliant. And we tried to get him in our video projects, and that never worked. It worked like we got him for 1 hour once, and the stuff he did was brilliant. But Shane, if you're out there, contact the Doom Planet podcast, please, and be alive.
Gone are my blues and gone are my tears. I've got good news to shout in your ears. The long lost dollar has come back to the fold. With silver you can turn your dreams to gold. Oh, we're in the money, we're in the money. We've got a lot of what it takes to get along.
Okay, folks, that wraps up this episode. This has kind of been some sloppy shit. I'm really honestly just getting into the groove. It took me a long time to get season 2 going. And I think by next episode, hopefully some people will die that we can talk about. And otherwise we'll dredge up some deaths from the past. You can find out more at doomplanet.com, although that just bounces to our Libsyn page. Libsyn is our host. I'm paying them $7 a month to host this podcast. And I don't know, some of it is popular. Notorious Seattle Boozers, Erica C. Barnett. It's gotten a lot of hits. Like, we've gotten over 5,000 unique listens where they listen to a good portion of the show in the last year. So that's more of an audience than any other of my millions of other projects has gotten. All right. See you soon. Goodbye.